Check. The grills in my mouth double as a freeze. The grills.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose.
Blame. Wendigo.
Peace, 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 planet, peace to the planet, peace to the planet, peace, peace. What's going on, everybody? I'm doing this impromptu live. This is part of a bigger body of work. By the way, this is a much bigger body of work that I'm working on as well. So it's pen in your pad, get ready. Shouts out to Crumb TV, always over the platform. This is M.O.I, Mental Information, if you don't know. For those of you who do know, what's happening? We in here. Let me get my background together. Give me a second. Give me a background together real quick. Hold on. I haven't actually been over here in a nice little minute, so pardon me. All right. Pardon me. But in true fashion, keep it in order. Do want to shout out the people who was in the building first, as Crumb called first responders in the building. Listen, y'all, we have a lot of information to get through tonight, so it's really, really important that you guys get pen and pad, pen and paper, pen and pencil, and take notes. Let's do this. Hold on. Let me do this. Let me put on one of my magical wizard hats. Put on my magical wizard hat so you guys can see me. I'm gonna wear one of my hats tonight. One of my mini hats. Okay. And throughout this segment, I might change hats again. So you never know. There we go. We got light. So straighten out my hat. One of my magical hats. All right. So Conscious Connect in the building. Conscious Connect in the building. What's happening? Juicy Christ. That is crazy. Juicy Christ in the building. I've never heard of that. Brother said Juicy Christ. I dig. And a lot of y'all are not familiar with my style of lecturing. While I'm on the platform, I ask, this is not for entertainment purposes. This is for education purposes only. I ask you guys take notes. And don't believe a word I say tonight. This is just information. This is my portion of understanding, which has been given out to me. This is my personal download information. I'm making it my goal to get you guys through that part of U.S. history that people tend to shy away from. Things like the Continental Congress. You may have heard of the Continental Congress, the Virginia Assembly, the Virginia Company, Philadelphia Company. These things become important due to the fact of what I was trying to tell you guys a long time ago, and we'll cover it. There's a word called proprietary, and I'm hoping good brother Crumb is able to get my little I made notes, y'all. I made notes for the night. Like I stick to my notes. I had a conversation with Crumb a couple of days ago about using PowerPoint, so on and so forth. And I said, you know what? Let me get some notes, because I think the only way I'm gonna properly convey you guys through this information is by taking notes. Where did I send it? I sent it over to. Hold on, guys. Bear with me for a second. I sent it over to Crom TV ads and your other email as well. Send it over to cromsnatcher908@gmail. It's no subject. It has an attachment. It comes from the Celeb Chef Ponder Gmail. All right, cool. Trying to get these notes together, family. Give me a second. But Juicy Crap, what's up, man? Drop Town in the building. Let's go. God Rod Mel Enhanced out now. I need some of that, bro. Some of that juice. What up, though? D Nice always in the building, man. D Nice over my channel. He on Crum TV. Master student, disciple, definitely in the building. And D Nice, you already know, man. Get your pen and your pad. Let's take some notes, man. Take some notes for the night. So Saturday evening. A lot of people getting ready to go to the club or at the club, but we're gonna kick it and learn and build a little bit. I love it. Music Atlanta HQ. A lot of you guys are new to me, not to Crum TV, because I'm sharing this across Crum TV platform as well as my own YouTube channel. So a lot of you guys, I don't recognize you, but I'm glad you're here. So glad. A lot of you guys I do recognize here. Thank you for tapping in. We're at 72 people right now. I'm not gonna go live to get 100 people. I'm not gonna waste my time with no 70 people. I appreciate all 70 of y'all, but I feel like if 70 people hit share one time, we can double that number to like 144. I'm pretty sure we can. Peace and love. Master student, peace and love, brother. Thanks for checking in, man. Peace, family. Get those pens and papers out, man. And make sure y'all share this. Baby girl always in the building. Gratitude, good folks. Appreciate y'all. Listen, I'm gonna be doing some teaching tonight. Okay. So I need y'all to sacrifice some of your blunt money, or whatever you medicinal money, spend your money on. Drop some money in the collection plate this evening. We about to teach. I'm about to go in. We're dealing with the invasion of the Penal Colonies. It's a lecture I did a while ago with a young lady, and we had shared some information that kind of stuck with me, and I want to make sure that I go back and revisit the penal colony or the invasion of the penal colony. Go back and make sure I visit that subject over and over and over again. So if you already heard it, you're in for a treat. If you haven't heard it, you're in for a treat. Either way. Peace and love, the L's and the Bays, the wheels and the ways. Peace and love to all. Peace and light to everybody. We're at 76 people watching right now. I need 100 people. I need 100. That means you guys got to share this right now. You guys got to share it right now. Antonio Will said, digging that cap, minister. I see today. I see today. Yeah. So what I'm going to do throughout this lecture, I'm going to change my hats. I'm a man of many hats. If you notice that the tassel's cut off, because this ain't no birthright right here. This was earned. I disconnected the ether cord to this right here. Because ain't no real light with this for real. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. Sharing. Miss Jordan said she's sharing. I need y'all to do the same thing she's doing right now. We had 91 people. We're almost there. All right, so what I'm gonna do is go ahead and kick off. Peace and love, good brother. Peace and light, good brother. You got me right. Boy, listen, I needed this right here because I'm like, I got 3. You guys can't see me, but I had to have 3 monitors up. I look like a freaking IT about to hack some shit over here. I got 3 monitors up. I'm not playing no games with y'all tonight. We're taking notes. And if you guys want a copy of these notes, be sure to shoot me an email. Give you my Gmail out real quick. I'm sure I give you the right Gmail. And I have to do better by checking that Gmail. It's M.O.I podcast at gmail.com. M.O.I podcast at gmail.com is the email. I'll definitely share this information with you guys like I always do. What did good brother say? Studying, man. Study. If I could, study. You guys can't really see it because of the backdrop, but all these degrees and shit I got, man, you can't really see it. But see all these degrees right here? It's just studying. These are all degrees with gold seals on them. Study. Just study, bro. And if you hang out long enough around Chrome and myself, brother, all the information that I have retained, I'm sharing it. I'm not a gatekeeper. I'm sharing it. Peace. So,
could I chime in and let the people know a little bit about your background? Because I think you're trying to oversimplify it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, family. So M.O.I is just not a regular studier. M.O.I is OCD. I've heard some of the craziest stories from him. Remember, for us normal people, summer school was a punishment. Summer school was something nobody looked forward to. Summer school was, if you did something wrong, if you didn't study during the school year, you didn't make the grade, they told you they was going to hold you back, blah, blah, blah. M.O.I was one of those people who was fine, no problems in school, and he elected to go to summer school. Family, I never heard nothing like that. No one I know has ever volunteered for summer school. And that was a part of his initiation in regular school with that education. And to add on to that, and the part that I would say is OCD is not only him, but his family would say, he would go on these spurts where he would just read for 37, 39 hours straight. No normal person does that. That's not, he'll get into these modes where he can't stop. That's why I say OCD. So that's a little bit of a background of how he got to that level. It's something about him that he just can't stop.
No, that's facts, bro. And I definitely appreciate it. I mean, bro can bear witness, man, to the information I have been kicking for years. Before there was a StreamYard, before there was an Instagram and TikTok, man, this brother was down there with the whiteboard and the dry erase marker. Like there was no point of reference to refer to other than just the information. So appreciate y'all, man, like a lot for tapping in with me. Hold on, I'll plug this fan real quick. So once again, what I had mentioned already was the penal colonies. Penal colonies. We hear the word penal system. It rings a bell for criminal activity, things of that nature. When we hear the word penal colony or just penal, period. And I think this picture, we're 100 people, y'all. We ready? This picture is worth 1,000 words because it's a lot in this picture. You see the Masonic square and compass. You see land grab. You see chains and shackles. You see the white lady examining the sister's mouth up front. You see the alien in the background. You see the world. You see the indigenous Americans in that picture. That picture is it's a lot going on in that picture. And the particular location that we're going to start with is around this area right here. Remember, I'm going to give you guys time and space, when and where it happens. So tonight's going to be a lot of dates. And we're going to start with the 1400s and work our way to about 1830. So your piece of paper right now, if you can write down 1400s. This is the time period. I'll put the email out again in a second, family. I got you. 1400s to 1835. I'll put it in the chat for you. That's the time period we're dealing with tonight. We have to be able to talk about time and space, when and where something happened. See, once we have our mind wrapped around the way Europeans sought to do this massive land grab, we're going to talk about a couple different things tonight. The Virginia Company. I'm going to pull them up in a second. Write that down. The Virginia Company, or just write down the word, the VA Company. We have the House of Burgess. House of Burgess. This Burgesses, the House of Burgess. And finally, we'll talk about a couple different charters and Doctrine of Discovery. And I think we're going to begin with the Doctrine of Discovery, which is going to give us kind of the pretext to how all this massive land grabbing started to happen. And we have to know that our people were already fighting these wars, the 100-year Indian War, several other Indian wars. We won't really get too much into because I'm still deciphering the Indian Wars. What I'm finding out is a lot of the Indians, or so-called Indians, on the East Coast of America, who's being pushed back into the Western frontier, had squabbles with those Mongolian so-called Indians out there. And Britain and France saw opportunity to take the East Coast Indians and pit them against the Western frontier Indians, and had Indians fighting against Indians. So it was a lot of skirmishes amongst a lot of tribal civil wars. You call them civil wars. A lot of local civil wars amongst tribes also that I'm discovering. And I'll give you some names of some tribes that you should focus on for the East Coast of America. I gave a real good presentation yesterday, I think it was, on TikTok. I'm going live on TikTok too. Follow me on TikTok, immense of information on TikTok as well. I'll put all the information at the bottom once I'm done. You guys can find me on TikTok, anywhere else. My goal is to go live more often on TikTok and YouTube live directly. I'm going to bring information to this forefront across all platforms as well. So StreamYard has been extremely well to myself, I think to Crom also. But we want to get a little bit more invasive and start going live on the platforms. Look out for Crom going live on TikTok as well. TikTok is doing justice so far. So anyway, that's where we're going to start. Virginia, East Coast. I say this right here. I say that we spend too much time looking out the front porch. We spend a whole lot of time looking out the front porch. And the front porch is Virginia. The front porch is the 13 colonies. I don't think we have a full grasp about the 13 colonies. I don't think we have a full grasp about how they even got started or where they even come from, or what makes up the 13 colonies. What territories were sought after by Europeans? Who settled North America? Because I know we say Europe, Europeans. Which ones? Which Europeans? This becomes important because we talk about which Europeans settled the American territory. if we talk about the Portuguese and the Spaniards, it'll be mostly South America and Central America, majority. Now, Spaniards and Portuguese, mostly Spaniards, did do a land grab on North America, mostly Florida territory, today Texas, California, Mexico, so on and so forth, and parts of South America that the Portuguese mostly got what's called Argentina today. Okay, we'll take a look at that as well. And I want to teach you guys this information because it's very important when we talk about things like the transatlantic slave trade. I think a lot of history becomes lost in the transatlantic slave trade due to the fact that we become sympathizers for an event that didn't necessarily affect us directly here in the shores of North America. Affected adversely and indirectly, but the second Atlantic slave trade is the one that affected us the most. And before we get to the first Atlantic slave trade, before we start dealing with people like John Hawkins, who was the first contracted individual by Queen Elizabeth, we have to find out, why did Queen Elizabeth or any kingdom of Great Britain feel like they had a say-so in the territories of North America? And I remember telling y'all before on Crumb TV, me talking about what's called the feudal system. We're going to look up the feudal system also. Matter of fact, let me pull up on my thing and get it ready for it. We're going to take a crack at the feudal system. So I think we're going to look at the feudal system first. And the feudal system sets up hold on y'all. Feudalism. It's called feudalism. Feudalism actually, appreciate you, bro. Feudalism actually sets up the pretext for how they began to start to govern the land in the 48 territories or the 48 colonies of North America. So today we're not worried about Africa. Today we're not worried about Haiti. We're not worried about no place but the 48 colonies from which you all live at. Shouts out to anybody that's watching from overseas in the territory. But for everybody that's living in the 48 territories of North America, this is a crash course in U.S. history and world history as it relates to the territories in North America. So this area right here, mainly, this is Maryland, D.C., Virginia, Pennsylvania, West and East Jersey. Boston is a little bit further up north, New York, and so on and so forth. This territory was the first contact. One of the first contacts, I apologize. One of the first contacts of territory settled in the early 1600s by people from Britain. We call them pilgrims, but they were actually on a pilgrimage. They were on a religious Mecca, a religious Hajj, if you will. And those individuals traveling to these territories, let's take a look at them real quick. Give me a second. Oh, so we're going to talk about this also. I got a couple different articles, books. And if we get time, I'll tell you what this right here is also, if we get time. So lots to cover. As you can tell, I'm freaking excited. I'm excited. These territories, these are the main territories we'll talk about today. I got a better map of what was happening. This is a distribution of the various tribes. I showed you the map a little bit earlier. So this map right here I showed you earlier was what it looked like before the colonies got here. This is what the colonies got here. This is what they set up. It said a new map, Virginia, Maryland, and improved parts of Pennsylvania and New Jersey. This is after the settlement. I think the map says looked like 19 or something. It was called a iconifer. I think they're called. The map makers are called iconifers, I believe. This is what it looked like prior. Take a look at this. Now, particularly, we're gonna focus on areas like Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama. We're going to focus on those states. Now, outside the Mississippi River right here, you see the Mississippi River area out to the west is blank. That still belong to Britain and Spain. That territory still belongs to Britain and Spain. So we're only talking about right here. You see the word Algonquian speaking people. That was a language. And you see some of the tribes. You see the Miamians, Illinois, Kickapoo, Power, whatever that says, Ottawa, Powhatan, Catawba. You see the Yamasee. You see the Creek, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Yamansees down there, the Delaware Indians down there, Pequot, Pamunkey, the Wampanoag. Those are several Mohawks. Those are several dark-skinned tribes in that mix. You guys should probably write down and look up as well, especially the Miamians, the Yamasee, the Cimarron, you call Seminole. So we'll talk about the Yamasee and the Yamacraw in a second. Just want to give you guys an idea of the territory we're going to be covering. Let's jump into this real quick. It's a lot of information, family. I'm excited about this today. Feudalism. What is feudalism? What is a feudal system? Feudalism. Remember, this feudal idea is coming from Europe. They're coming over here from Europe. They don't know what a demo system is or a republic is yet. They don't discover that until one of their agents, Benjamin Franklin, was an agent for France. He went to Albany, New York. There was a conference at Albany, New York, where he taught them that, hey, we have to send a delegate, a representative from each colony to represent the interests of the colony. Like, they had to learn the Republican system. They come from a feudal system. Remember, everybody from France, Paris, Spain, Portugal, anybody from those European nations come from a feudal system. Feudalism, first of all, feudalism, a dominant social system in medieval Europe in which the nobility held lands from the crown in exchange for military service, and vassals were in turn tenant of nobles, while the peasant villains or serfs were obligated to live on their lord's land and give him homage, labor, and share of the produce, notionality in exchange for military protection. Now, a lot of that sounds like Jim Crow slavery, especially the part when they said that the lord of the planter or the slave master, they would live, the slaves were obligated. Watch how I remix this to make it sound like what it is when they came here. Watch this now. The slaves were obligated to live on the land of the planter, slave master, and give him homage, labor, and shares of produce. Sounds like sharecropping, doesn't it? Tenant farming. Exactly. But this is in Europe. They haven't came over here yet. We look like this over here while they had the feudal system going on. So while they had feudalism going on, we look like this over here. Okay? There was no feudal system over here. That's feudalism. Let's look up feudal lords. Now, everything I'm pulling up, family, write them down. Don't just be on here just for entertainment. I promise you, it's going to do you no good to just listen to what I'm saying and try to walk off and remember all that. I'm just getting started. I'm like 26 minutes in, and I haven't even started yet on how much information we got to go through tonight. So please take notes. This is important. I feel like I'm back in college, letting my students know, hey guys, you got to take notes. Okay, let's take some notes. Feudal lords were noblemen who received lands from the king. The feudal lords had their own hierarchy. Some of the important feudal lords were dukes, earls, barons, and knights. I want you guys to write down dukes, earls, barons, and knights. The barons become very important later. The barons become what's called your bar exam, Baron Association registration exam. Those are your barons, or they were called Lombards or capitalists. They become important when we start talking about things like the Virginia Company and the 1663 Carolina Charter, but they're called something that's different in that point in time, right? I know a lot of Moors hop on here and start talking about, oh, the Inca Terra convening the Moors and the Moors did it. I'm gonna give y'all the history behind it, not all that barbershop talk. I'm giving you the history behind it. So first of all, we have to understand what type of system did Europe bring over here to our lands and how they enforce the system. What did they use to enforce this system? So we got the noblemen, feudal lords, feudal system. Let's hop into something else real quick. You got something to add, bro?
Yeah, if you lived on that land of the Lord, you would have to take his last name. Yeah, we had slave names. Yeah, I guess you could technically say that, but everybody has slave names. But yeah, so those were slave names. Because these were Slavs. These were the tenants of the land. Just want to put that out there. Please continue.
Thank you, bro. That's absolutely right. Just like our forefathers got Johnson and Jackson and all that kind of stuff from the plantation, same way. Here's a familiar name. The Voyages of Christopher Columbus. How many of you guys know Columbus came here 4 times? They never said it in school he came 4 times. They made it like he came one time, discovered America, and got it popping. He came here 4 times. 1492, 93, 98, and 1502. He came back a couple different times. Between 1492 and 1504, remember now, at 1492, this was the supposed fall of the Moors. Granada, Tripoli, they just had kidnapped Chief Montezuma and took him back to Europe. So when they say from the shores of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, that's what they're talking about. Fall of the Moors. And the last expulsion of the Moors happened what's called April Fool's Day. That was during the Inquisition. The last little bit of Moors who were sent out of Spain. But I want you guys to think that this is a Moorish dynamic. Earlier on, it was Granada, Tripoli, Chief Montezuma. Those golden empires were definitely associated with Moors. But the North American continent, nobody was interested in North American continent, as you can see at the map at the bottom right. Nobody. 1490s, 1500s, 1596. Nobody's interested. Now, Spain got Florida, parts of Alabama, Texas, Mexico, and parts of California. That's, by the way, people like Spanish explorer or Spanish agent Cortez and De Soto. All right. And then you have Ponce de Leon setting up St. Augustine in Florida. I think Ponce de Leon came on a second voyage with Columbus, second or third voyage. Ponce de Leon ended up becoming the governor of Bridgeport, Puerto Rico. You see those lines on that map there in our family? You see all these lines right here? They're showing you out at sea right here. That's Spain. From Spain over to new territory. It's called Hispaniola, they called it. Nobody's come out of Africa yet. Ain't no slaves come out of Africa yet. In fact, after I tell you about Columbus and how he got over here with documentation, I'm going to take you to North America and show you the Indian wars that were being fought in the 1500s. Shortly after Columbus discovered America, there was also wars and skirmishes in North America happening also. So all these islands they're going to, there are people already there. That's not even up for debate. These people began to push back and fight back. But fortunately, by the time Spain and Portugal and these other European nations began to come over by the boatload, literally by the boatload, they were the first immigrants setting up these colonies and camps. We're going to talk about why they did it and how they did it. Like how they come out the dark ages from being pestilent and disease from a nobility class, how they lay claim on our land over here and just take our shit over here. How did it happen? If it was this great empire, this great nation called Turtle Island, how do they conquer us? I'm gonna show you how they conquered us. It's gonna blow your freaking mind how they did it. It's quite how they do stuff right now with paperwork. Between 1492 and 1504, an Italian navigator. How many of y'all know Columbus was Italian? He was a Gaul, G-U-A-L, a Gaul. Gaul. That's Italy. He was an Italian. He was a little fat Italian. Some people say, oh, he was black. Well, whatever. Either way, he was an Italian. 1902 to 1504, an Italian navigator, explorer. Anytime you see navigator, Henry the Navigator, or whoever the case is, understand, family, these were agents. Agents. Matter of fact, I got my pad right here. I'm going to write in the word colonial agent. I'm going to circle it, come back to show you what a colonial agent was. Colonial agent. And these agents was just in the invested interest for the crown. These were agents. What's his name? I just called him earlier. Fat boy from France with the glasses. Benjamin Franklin was an agent. It says 1492 to 1504, an Italian navigator and explorer, Christopher Columbus, led 4 transatlantic maritime expeditions in the name of the Catholic monarchs of Spain. Anytime you see the word monarch, it's talking about a queen and a king, a monarchy. Who directly dictates feudal systems? Monarchs. The feudal system is already at play when we mention the word monarchs. It says Catholic monarchs. That means because the Catholic mention is already put in there, you best believe there's a pope somewhere involved. There's a pope somewhere involved. The Catholic monarchs of Spain they're talking about is Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand. You need to know those names. You need to know those names. Isabella and King Ferdinand. Yes, brother.
And I want to point out, because I know we're talking about feudalism, which is basically the first form of, well, which demonstrates the first form of slavery, which had nothing to do with black or white. This was very, very, very much a religious war. If you weren't the right type of religion, we're going to subjugate you. We're going to enslave you. We're going to, depending on if you conform, we're going to exile you, blah, blah, blah.
That's facts. Maritime expedition in the name of the Catholic monarchs of Spain to the Caribbean and Central and South America. You need to know that. Anytime they start talking about slavery, you ask them when and where. This is why, family. This is why you ask them when did the slave trade start. Ask them when did the African slave trade start. When? Nobody of substance even comes over here to 1492. Now, the people coming over, of course, they came prior. Of substance, meaning of historical mention. Worth mentioning. Watch what happens next. These voyages led to widespread knowledge of the New World. This breakthrough intrigued. It's not intrigue. This breakthrough. Where am I?
Inaugurated.
There we go. Inaugurated. This breakthrough inaugurated the period known as the Age of Discovery. Now, the Age of Discovery is really big for Europe because they just came into what's called the Age of Enlightenment.
Correct.
They just had the Age of Enlightenment. Before the Age of Enlightenment, they have not too long came to what's called the Iron Age. And before the Iron Age, they had what was called the Bronze Age. Before the Bronze Age, they had what was called the Copper Age. Before the Copper Age, they had what was called the Stone Age. So they're just getting to their age of discovery. They thought the world was flat, which it is, but not how they thought it was. They thought if you go past the Canary Islands, like that was it. It was over. They never heard of no more land over here. They never heard of the no more land over here until now. Watch what happens. During the period of Age of Discovery, which sought to colonize of the Americas, a related biological exchange in the transatlantic trade. These events the effect and consequences of which persist to the present and are often cited as the beginning of a modern era. And this is the modern era for them. This is the modern era for them. The next paragraph, something is mentioned you guys have to take notice of. Born in the Republic of Gino, Columbus was a navigator who sailed in search of a western route to India. He was really trying to go to India. Why was Columbus trying to go to India, like the real Asia, India? Because Europeans were not allowed to go on what's called the Silk Road, or the spice trade road. They had to go around Africa to get their spices. Okay? And the spice islands of East Asia, sources of spices. We know today Europeans still don't season their food. This is part of the reason they got on the spice wagon way late. They didn't know about Lawry's and House of Autry and garlic salt and garlic powder. They didn't have it yet. This is history. And other precious Oriental goods obtainable only through the arduous overland routes. See, they couldn't go overland. Overland, it was called the Silk Routes. Let me show you. It's called the Silk Route. I'll show you in a second. It's called the Silk. Remember that, the Silk Routes. They couldn't go that way. They didn't play that. The North African countries didn't allow Europeans to come through there on that spice. Now, this Silk Road, this spice, this overland route went from the Mediterranean all the way to China. And they all traded spices with one another. Africans traded spices with everybody. They all traded spices together. Europeans, however, Spain, Portugal, the Dutchlands, had no access to that. No access to spices. And I'm harping on this, so keep this in mind. Let's remove the fact for a second, as we have this journey through history, that this is about race. Let's take it off the table for a second. It's not about we hate black people. Take it off the table. Let's put trades, commodities, and GDP. You don't know what GDP stands for? GDP is gross domestic product. This is just business. This is not personal. I know it feels personal because it don't happen to our people, but this is just business. Okay? This whole transaction from Christopher Columbus all the way down to John Ross in 1823, it's all business. It's not personal. All right? Let's keep going for a second. Okay, Columbus was partly inspired by the 13th century Italian explorer Marco Polo. Marco Polo brought noodles and pasta to Asia, if you didn't know that. There would be no pho bowls with pasta in it if Marco Polo didn't do that. And Marco Polo did it in exchange for what's called gunpowder today, because Asia had firecrackers a long time ago. Like they're still known for making the best firecrackers to this day. So Marco Polo exchanges gunpowder. This is the exchange route. There's this exchanging thing. Hey, look, we got noodles. We got flour, egg, and water to make these little stringy things called pasta. And the Asians like, ooh, pasta. And they trade, right? So again, this is just about GDP. Yes, please. I think your mic, bro.
Sorry about that. Do you mind if I share screen? I just want to show you something.
Please.
I also wanted to make mention of this in terms of by the time they got on those Silk Roads, this is not all wise, right, and exact. There's a couple different theories, but one of the theories, this is according to Trips at Asia, a very interesting site. The fleas that carried the deadly bacterium known as Yersinia pestis were transferred by the rats across the major trading route of the Silk Road. Now, a lot of people didn't have to worry about that because they had already came into the science of washing your hands or whatnot and corralling animals into certain areas, but the European had not made those advancements at this particular time, which was very much to their detriment. I yield.
Damn. Nasty. And look, everything we're showing y'all, man, is researchable. It's researchable. I haven't even got to my document yet, which I'm gonna bring up in a second. But at the time of Columbus voyage, the Americas were inhabited by indigenous Americans. Ooh, who were they? Let's take a gander, shall we? The indigenous people of America are groups, plural, of people native to a specific region that inhabited America before the arrival of the European settlers in the 15th century, 1400s. And the ethnic groups who continued to identify themselves with those people. And the ethnic groups who continue to identify themselves with those people are called indigenous people of the Americas. That's everybody. Everybody. Powhatan, Pamunkey, Geechee, Gullah, Toltec, Oltec, Olmec, all of them. Everybody. And Columbus later participated in beginning the Spanish conquest of America. Conquistador. Write down conquistador is a term used to refer to a Spanish and Portuguese soldier. Why they got soldiers coming over here? Who declared war? You think our people ready for war? We didn't know. We was in Puerto Rico chilling. We was in DR eating grapes, laying on the beach. We was in Jamaica getting a perfect tan out in the water. They coming over here. They ready to fight. They're ready to kill us. I'm gonna show you what gave them that notion in a second, and then we'll go into North America and this big land grab. But y'all have to understand what's happening right now. Y'all have to understand what's happening right now. It's very important. So these conquistadors, conquest explorers of age of discovery, conquistadors sailed beyond Iberian Peninsula to the Americas. These are conquistadors. These are specialty soldiers. You look to his, I think, left breastplate. That is a crescent cross. That is a crescent cross. These was the army of God. These were Catholic mercenaries from the church. Unalive. Sorry, I meant to say the word K-I. K-O-D. At the time of Columbus' voyage, the Americas were inhabited by indigenous Americans, and Columbus later participated in the beginning of the Spanish conquest of the Americas. Columbus died in 1506. In the next year, the New World was named America. The naming of the Americas or America occurred shortly after Christopher Columbus' first voyage to the Americas in 1492. It is generally accepted that the name derived from Amerigo Vespucci, the Italian explorer who explored the continent in the following years on behalf, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we either accept it's Amerigo Vespucci or we don't. That ain't the point. I'm not worried about Amerigo Vespucci. I'm not worried about Columbus. I'm not worried about Magellan. I'm not worried about none of these people. See Magellan's at the bottom. I ain't see him right there. Magellan, these are all names you can write down, by the way. Amerigo Vespucci, you should know who he is. Magellan, Columbus, John Hawkins. You should at least know who they are. Like, you should know who they are. I digress. You mind pulling that joint back up for me, bro? That document. Thank you. All right, let's talk about, this is the title I came up with, The Corporate State of the Colonies of the 1663 Carolinas. Lord Proprietor. Lord Proprietor. And you guys have a house, bought a house, got a mortgage, any of that stuff, this applies to you right now in 2024 as I go through this information. Lord Proprietor. A Lord Proprietor is a person granted a royal charter for the establishment and government of the English colonies in the 17th century. The plural term is Lords Proprietors or Lords Proprietor. Now, all 13 colonies were under this royal charter. All 48 colonies later, 22 colonies for the Union, 11 colonies for the South, for Confederacy, those with 33 unions, 33 colonies, were all under royal charters. How do you get to the royal charter? I'm going to show you in a second. It's when you guys understand what's happening. In the beginning of the European colonial era, this is a whole era called the European colonial era. Trade companies such as the East Indian Company, write them down, please. East Indian Company. East Indian Company. Look them up. East Indian Company. Let's check them out real quick. The East India Company was the English and later British. English, then British. I thought they were the same people. They're not. Okay, understand they're not. Was an English, later British joint stock company founded in 1600s. It dissolved in 1874. It was formed to trade in the Indian Ocean region, initially with the East Indies to the south of South Asia. They was trying to go over to India and get those snacks. Okay. East Indian Company. And later with the East Indian Company, the company gained control of large parts of South Asia and colonized parts of Southeast Asia and Hong Kong. At its peak, the company was the largest corporation in the world by various measures, and it owned armed forces in the form of the company's three presidency armies, totaling 260,000 soldiers, twice the size of the British Army at the time. It had its own army. Originally chartered as the Governor and Company of Merchants of London trading into the East Indies. Originally chartered as Governor and Company of Merchants of London trading in East India. See, we're going to get to the bottom of who were the real slave traders. Not the planters, the plantation people. Not them. I know they give you the movies and he the boogeyman. No, he had financial backing from somebody else. Like let's trace the money. This is what we're doing tonight. This is part one. Let's trace the money. Let's find out what they're trading for. Originally chartered governor in the Company of Merchant in London trading in East India, the company rose to account for half of the world's trading during the mid-1700s, early 1800s, particularly in the basic commodities, including cotton. The cotton was around 1830. Let's be for real. There was no cotton to 1830. Okay, this is 1700s. Let's be fucking for real for a second. Okay, silk, indigo dye, sugar, salt, spices, sapphire, tea, and opium. That's right. They were on opium. They were all oped up. They were on methamphetamines. Wow. The company also initiated the beginnings of the British Empire in South Asia. The company eventually came to rule a large area of present-day Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India, exercising military power and assuming administrative function. Assuming administrative function is very important. They assumed administrative functions, meaning all forms of government. They took over. This is the East Indian Company. Write that down. Because if they're getting tea, they need sugar for the tea. Sugar comes next. Originally chartered as the Governor and Company of Merchant of London trading in East Indies. Please remember them. They're important to this conversation. In the beginning, the European colonial trade companies, the East India Company, was most common method used to settle new land. That changed after Maryland's royal grant in 1632. Write down royal grant, Maryland's royal grant, because Maryland had a grant in 1632. In 63, we talk about the Carolina grant, and then Georgia comes along in 1732, I believe it was. These are all grants and charters. The way you obtain a charter, you have to have a governing body. And the Masonic Lodge, in order for us to get a charter, we had to have the major seats, which is the worshiper master, the senior ward, junior ward, and secretary treasurer. You have to have those 5 components in play. And from there, you can petition for a charter. That charter gives you certain rights of authority to govern yourselves as an independent body. That's what a charter does. Now, a royal charter comes from the monarch authority. There's another kind of a charter that's given by the Pope, and that sanction is under what's called ecclesiastical authority. So each church you see in your community on the corner, those churches are there on the ecclesiastic charters. And because that church is on that territorial land, that geo-proximity land. Every church is on a corner too, by the way. Every major church is on a corner. It's the northeast corner of the city. It's methodically put that way for a reason. In the beginning, European colonial area trade companies such as the East India Company were the most common method used to settle new land. That changed after Maryland's royal grant in 1632, when King Charles I granted George Colbert, first Baron Baltimore. Remember that word, Baron Baltimore, or just Baron. Not like you can't bear kids, but capitalists, Lombards, proprietary rights to an area east of the Potomac River in exchange for shares of income derived there. So we've seen a couple things so far. We've seen the word charter, we've seen the word companies, we've seen the word income, shares. This is before Wall Street was created. It says the proprietary colonies later became the most common way to settle areas in British subjects. The land was licensed or granted a proprietary who held expansion power. The powers were commonly written into the land charter by using Bishop of Durham clause. We're going to talk about the Bishop of Durham clause, which recreated the powers and responsibilities once given the County Palatine of Durham in England. That clause gave the Lord, not talking about God, another name for Lord is governor. So write the word Lord, write the word governor beside it. Okay? Each one of you who live in the 48 colonies, you have a governor. All states have governors. And I think our people have a hard time understanding how government works, even with this whole election situation. You see more people rallying to vote for president versus rallying to vote for their school board director or who their new superintendent going to be, or for their local prosecutor for their state. That has more bearings on you than who Kamala can do nothing for you anyway. Kamala can't do nothing for individual states. That's not how it works. 3 forms of government: executive, judicial. What's the other one? Judicial,
Legislative.
Those 3 forms. Okay, that's how it works. She's just trying to get into the executive branch. Don't mill a hill of beans. I'm gonna sidestep for a point real quick. On that same point, the president has no power without legislation, okay, or judicial. That means that little piece of paper that Lincoln had created called the Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order. It had no legal remedy to it at all. Wasn't worth the paper it's written on. That's later. Let's keep going. Proprietary colonies later became the most common way to sell areas. They're saying this is the best way to sell this new land. Now, I haven't talked to you guys about how they got the new land yet. That's going to be in a second. But when I get to how they got the new land, this is going to make sense for you guys. County Palatine of Durham in England, that clause was that clause gave the Lord proprietary power to create courts. They can create courts? Yeah, that's how you get colorable law, colorable courts and stuff of that nature. And laws establishing governing bodies and churches and appoint all governing officials. That's called the County Palatine of Durham. That's an act. Proprietary colonies were a type of colonies in English America. That's over here, guys, which exists during the early modern period. An English overseas possession established in the 17th century, 1600s, onwards, all land in the colonies belonged to the crown, which ultimately authority over their management. All English colonies were divided by the crown by royal charters into 3 types of colonies: proprietary colony, charter colony, and a crown colony. Under the proprietary system, individuals or companies often joint stock companies. It means there's a multitude of people invested in this. This is an investment. Hey, Crom, I heard they're giving away land over in the Newfoundland, over in America. You want to go 100,000 with me? Crom says, sure, I got 100,000. Mike, he got 100,000. Mike got, Oh, we got 500,000 over here. Between me, Crumb, Mike, him, her, we are now a joint stock company named such and such. These are companies. These are just investments. Nobody sought out to say, go get them Negroes from Africa. It didn't go that way. This was a company. These are companies doing this stuff, man. Even financing the ships that came over here and making sure the cargo that went back and forth. This was called mercantilism. We're going to talk about mercantilism too. Mercantilism is sea power. Who control the seas? Who get the money from the sea land? Import, export. It's not that way as much today, but in this time, that's the only way you can get out. Whether you trade in cotton, sugar, rum, or people, whatever the commodity was to trade, they'll do it. See, this is all about work, jobs, all the way down to supposed slavery. I said before, had the ancestors at that time had a HR department, you would have never heard of slavery. If we had an HR department or an EO department back then, you would have never heard of slavery. It was only to do with unfair pay, unfair treatment on the work site. Ooh, we need civil rights to be treated equally on the job. What about human rights? We're humans. I don't worry about that. Let's get the civil rights going. That way we can have an opportunity to compete with these white people who've been outcompeting us for 400 years. Individual or companies, often joint stock companies known as proprietaries, were granted commercial charters by the crown to establish overseas colonies. These proprietaries were then granted the authority to select the governor and other officials in the colonies. This is the setup. This is the preamble for your local municipality, for your counties, for your cities, for your boroughs, for your parishes. This is the preamble for it right here. This is how they came into Virginia and signed up Sussex County, Suffolk County, Hampton County. It's how they came into Georgia and signed up Greene County, Clark County, Oconee County. And the word county means conquered land, by the way. This is how they did it. I'm gonna go back in a second to show you how they even got to this point. Let me continue. Illustration of Providence, Maryland. I think I got that somewhere in here. Pull up that illustration talking about from Providence, Maryland. Where is it at? There it is. This is the illustration right here you're referring to. This type of indirect rule eventually fell out of favor in England and the English colonial empire. Now it's a whole empire. Did y'all know that? This is part of what's called, I'm going to show you the British Empire and show you how far it is. And show you the Spanish Empire too. See, empire is bigger than a kingdom, way bigger. There are kingdoms inside of empires. The emperor has more reign than a king does. An empress has more reign than a queen does. Sisters, it's 2024. Stop calling yourself queens, please. I can show you what a queen job really is. Quean, the etymology of the word queen. It's the king's whore. You are an empress. That's divination. That's divinity. As an empress, not a queen. Please stop calling yourself queens. Anyway, this type of indirect rule eventually fell out of favor with the English colonial empire due to the variety of reasons, including the gradual social political sustainability, association of England's American colonies, the easing of bureaucratic difficulties in managing the colonies, and increasing economic administrative difficulties faced by the proprietaries. They're saying the proprietors, who are the investors, this wasn't favorable anymore. They had to go to some other kind of system. Watch the system change. Successive English sovereigns sought to solidify their power and authority throughout the empire and gradually convert all proprietary colonies to crown colonies. Remember the 3 colonies earlier? The royal charter. This is in a crown charter, different charters, which were administered by officials directly appointed by the crown. By the 18th century, which is the 1700s, most former proprietary colonies had been converted into crown colonies. So these are crown colonies, aka penal colonies. Why are these penal colonies now? Because they're under what's called feudal, the feudal system. Penal, feudal. The word civil mortuus, loss of all civil rights, felons. What do you call them? What kind of jail? Debtors jail. Debtors jail. And the system was set up this way because remember, the people that sent over here to work are not the Africans at first. They sent over their people over here from Europe, the Slavic people, the Slavs who were in jail. You got to remember who's in power right now. King Charles I was in power. King Charles II comes along later. King Charles, what's the movie with Leo the Lionheart? King Leo, Autumn Cats. They had been fighting hundreds of years already prior to coming to the Americas. They had cellars full of imprisoned people, debt collectors, and just POWs. They didn't have the authority of the Gauls quite yet to go into Africa to get Africans out of Africa to come do anything. Remember these time periods I'm talking about right now. 1734, 1634, 1665. Remember these time periods. And I'm going to go over to North America and show you what they were doing. This is just England preparing to come over here, trying to figure it out. All right? Proprietary colonies in America were governed by lord proprietors, aka governors, who hold authority by virtue of royal charter, usually exercise that authority to most as an independent sovereign. These colonies were distinct from crown colonies in that they were commercially enterprise establishment under the authority of the crown. Commercially enterprise establishment. Who has a business license in the audience? Press 111. Let's start over. 000 if you have a business license in the comments right now. 000 you have a business license. If you have a business license or an EIN, typically they would ask you, what type of business do you have? Is this a sole proprietor? Is it an LLC? Like, what is it? What kind of business do you have? Hold on, fam. I'm sorry. I got a text real quick. All right, we ain't doing that. All right, cool. What kind of business do you have? And then if you are in commercial property or real estate. Oh, God, real estate is another one. The real estate. The real estate. I'm going to read it again. Proprietary colonies in America, which we are proprietary colonies, all 48, who were governed by a lord proprietor. A lord proprietor is a governor. He acts on the behalf of the crown, in interest of the crown, who holding authority by virtue of a royal charter usually exercised that authority almost as an independent sovereign. These colonies are distinct from crown colonies in that they are commercial enterprise established under the authority of the crown. Proprietary governors had legal responsibility over the colony as well as responsibility to the shareholders to ensure that the security of their investment. That's all these 48 colonies are. That's why anytime you go outside your home and you drive through the city anywhere, there's commercial real estate everywhere. There's a McDonald's, there's a Chili's, there's a Checkers, there's a Zaxby's, there's a Walmart, there's a Dunkin' Donuts, there's a QT, there's a Publix, there's a this, there's a that. It's all commercial. Semi trucks on the road, back and forth, blah, blah, blah. You have a driver's license. You're pulled over and you're treated as a commercial driver. These colonies are still functioning as colonies. The IRS, 40% of taxes goes to the crown. Penal code system. The proprietary system is mostly an effective system in that proprietaries, for the most part, are like absentee landlords. Landlords. Many never even visit the colonies they own. By the 18th century, nearly all the proprietary colonies had either surrendered their charters to the crown or become royal colonies. The Lord proprietors, who were the 8 Englishmen to whom King Charles II granted by the Carolina Charter of 1663 and 65 the joint ownership of the tract of land in the New World called Carolina. All of these men either had remained loyal to the crown or aided Charles in restoration to England's throne. This is 1665. 1610, we know what happened 1610, right? Supposedly they came over here and set up Virginia. We're going to deal with that in a second, all right? Keep in mind real quick before we move on, keep in mind what is happening. You have King Charles in the seat. 1665 is happening. We'll come back to James Oglethorpe in a minute and his charter. Not quite yet, though, all right? So you got the word proprietor in your head. You understand what a proprietor is. You understand what a governor is. You understand what feudal law is. So when I start talking about counties and cities and municipalities and codes and ordinances and laws and statutes, it's going to make more sense. You got a question, bro?
Yeah, I was going to mention that a lot of these people, the British are coming. The British are coming. That don't even make sense. Bro, we are the British. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
The people over here identified as British. And why is this important? Because they knew they were wrong. They knew King Charles was right. It was the same thing we did with Columbus. We gave you the ships. We paid for your Disney cruise.
Yep.
Now you talk about you don't want to pay us back? Bruh. Pay me what you owe me. Shout out to Rihanna. They had to. King Charles was in the right. You guys are the kids, the wannabe Menendez brothers, trying to turn on your rich parents, talking about some no taxation, bro. No taxation. What representation? I paid your way to get over there, bruh.
And what you got to realize is, bro, a lot of those people who came over here, matter of fact, let me do this real quick. I'm so glad you brought that point up. Hold on, family. We're gonna circle back. Circle back. Allow. Colonial. Google be tripping. Watch this right here, though. Oh, there's right there. If you look up the Colonial Project, the term Colonial Project is a reference to the ongoing colonial occupation and exploitation of indigenous people, lands, and water. But initially, I think I find it real quick. There we go. Colonialism itself, right, is generally classified into 5 overlapping types. Did you guys know there's 5 types of colonialism? Colonizer. Which type of colonizer were they? There are 5 types of colonizers. There are settler colonialism. Those are just settlers. Exploitation colonialism, plantation colonialism, surrogate colonialism, and internal colonialism. There's 4 types of colonialism, of colonization. 4 types of colonization. Now, what I was trying to find was, it wasn't called the Colonial Project. It was called the Colonial Experiment. They didn't think it was going to work at first. They didn't think it was going to work at first. They had no idea. After the voyage of 1492, Portugal and Spain sent thousands of adventurers and settlers in the New World, followed soon after by the colonists from France, Holland, and England. All encountered uncertainties and dangers, and the experiment of colonization in the New World was never certain. It was called the Colonial Experiment, family. They had no idea. We're gonna send 5,000 y'all to South Carolina. We'll send 6,000 y'all to Georgia. We'll send another 4,000 y'all to New York. May the best man win. Good luck. We'll circle back in the year with more supplies. Oh, it's 15 of y'all left. What happened to everybody else? Y'all ate them. Why did y'all eat your own people? What is wrong with y'all? It was called the colonial experiment. They never meant for it to be what you guys thought it was. Now, how did they get the idea to come over here? Let's deal with it real quick, family. It's called the Papal Bull, Inticatera. Write it down, please. Write it down. 1493. What happened in 1492? Columbus sailed the ocean blue. So why did this happen in 1493 then? Like, it was a year after. No, this actually was already in play in 1489. It's called the Doctrine of Discovery. The Doctrine of Discovery was a papal bull. You know what a papal bull is? Well, let's look it up. That's what makes some of this stuff so hard sometimes, because I know a lot of people don't quite know what certain stuff means, and that's okay. Let's learn what a papal bull is real quick, family. A papal bull in Roman Catholic, I told you the Catholic Church was involved. Told you already. A papal bull in a Roman Catholicism is an official papal letter or document. The name is derived from the lead seal bulla, traditionally affixed to such documents. What's the purpose of a papal bull? Papal bulls were originally issued by the Pope for many kinds of communication to the public nature, but 13th century papal bulls were only used for the most formal or solemn occasion. A papal bull. Why does a papal bull carry so much weight? Let's look at this again. Here's why. The Pope stands in the place of Jesus himself as the vicar of Christ on earth. He is the head of the Catholic Church, and in her nearly 1.3 billion Catholics, and is responsible for the salvation of all souls throughout the entire world. We believe that Jesus chose Saint Peter. The Pope stands in the place of Jesus himself. The Pope is the vicar of Christ. This is why when the Pope issued what's called a papal bull, it carries so much weight. It is as if Jesus himself is making a decree. So now let's dig into what the Doctrine of Discovery was. What were the donations? The bull donation, also called the Alexander Bull and Papal Bull Doctrine of 1493, are three papal bulls. Pope Alexander VI. Write down Pope Alexander VI. Another pope you should write down is Pope Innocent. But right now, write down Pope Alexander VI, head of the Catholic Church in 1492. Pope Alexander VI delivered in 1493, which granted overseas territory to Portugal and the Catholic monarchs of Spain. They wouldn't even be coming over here. Let's find out why they came over here. Who told them we was over here? Well, they just toppled the Moors in Spain. Like, how they know? Okay, we'll get to that in a second. Never mind. I don't want to insinuate anything. May 4th, 1493, the Spanish-born Pope Alexander VI decreed a bull, Inticatera, that all lands west and south pole line 100 leagues west of the south and any islands, Azores and Cape Verde Islands, should belong to Spain. They laid claim to a paperwork. Documentation. You ever wonder how we fail and things start to go awry all of a sudden? This is why. It's called the Doctrine of Discovery. This little thing right here. Well, not this, but it's actually over here. The Doctrine of Discovery. The bull stated that any lands not inhabited by Christians were available to be discovered. Any lands not inhabited by Christians. How many of y'all think those lands had Christians on them already? There was no Christianity. It hadn't been brought over there yet. I've read the Bible a couple of times. I didn't see where Jesus came over to Texas or Florida or South Carolina. He didn't come over here. According to the book, he didn't. I mean, if you guys have a different book, he didn't. I don't know if he had his passport. I don't know what happened. He just
Stop it.
he just hung out in Africa the whole time. So, which is cool. It's okay. You know, so the people over here would have not known about Jesus yet until the clergymen came over here with the Spanish Inquisition to come over here. So anyway, the bull stated that any lands not inhabited by Christians was available to be discovered, claimed, and exploited by Christians. This is Christendom. You always hear me talk about Christendom. This is Christendom. This is the in hoc signet vince. This is the crown with the cross in the middle. And this side we shall conquer. This is the conquesting under the Roman Catholic Church. Crom told you earlier, this was a religious crusade. This was the continuing of the religious crusade. Now to the lands of the east, they call it El Maghrib, the farthest west. I'm sorry, the west, the farthest west. Now they're coming over here. But they came just sneaking and creeping at first, sneaking, creeping, and geeking at first to see what was going on. The Colombians told them, man, they over there with their clothes off. They eating grapes and these things called mangoes. What's a mango? I don't know, but it's good as hell. They eat mangoes. They got their spears out. They chilling. The women got their shirts off. They ain't got no clothes on over there. Oh, they're just getting down. They're getting down like, man, listen, we can fuck them up quick, easy. They don't know what a gun is. They don't have guns? No. They had muskets, people. The NRA was alive and well in Europe. There was no NRA in America yet. They coming, though. The National Rifle Association, the white boys were serious about them guns for a long time. They came with guns. The native called them fire sticks, not to watch TV on. But the bull stated any land not inhabited by Christians were available for discovery, claim, exploitation, to be exploited by Christian rulers, and declared that the Catholic faith and the Christian religion be exalted and be everywhere, increase and spread, that the health of the souls be cared for, that barbarous nations be overthrown and brought to the faith itself. This doctrine of discovery became the basis of all European, some, all, a few, all, three of them, all European claims in Americas, in the Americas, as well as the foundation for the United States Western expansion that was called Manifest Destiny. In the U.S. Supreme Court, the 1823 case Johnson versus McIntosh, Chief Justice John Marshall opinion, in a unanimous decision held that the principal discovery gave European nations an absolute right to the New World land. This was Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court 1823 case Johnson versus McIntosh. Chief Justice Johnson said in a unanimous decision that the principle of discovery gave European nations the absolute right to the New World. That's what the judicial branch was talking about in 1823. That's 1823 he said that, but we're still in 1493. I'm just telling you, he just referred to that doctrine in court cases, say this is our land anyway. This is 1823. So it makes it very easy when you hear about the Dred Scott case for the same Supreme Court, not the same guy, but another Supreme Court judge to say that there's no rights that a black man have that a white man is bound to respect. That was said in the Dred Scott case in the 1800s. This was said prior to the Dred Scott case, 1823. Supreme Court, this is our land. Remember that song? This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to New York now. That song.
Right.
It's their song. The bull Intercatera made headlines again through the 1990s and 2000s when many Catholics petitioned Pope John Paul II to formally revoke it and recognize the human rights of indigenous non-Christian people. It never happened. We're still in 1600s, y'all. I'm gonna quickly go through 1600s, 1700s, and then the juicy stuff is gonna be in the 1800s. We're gonna wrap this up. Right down the Virginia Company. These are all companies. We're going to go Virginia Company and then talk about the Carolina Charter of 1663 and talk about Georgia. The Virginia Company was an English trading company chartered by King James I. This is 1606. King Charles had already got his company popping. These are companies. These are your NASDAQ, your Dows. This is your this is your first companies. This is business for them, not personal. Not just personally killing black people. They're just, unaliving black people. They're just creating companies. Look at these companies. The Virginia Company was an English trading company chartered by King James I on April 10th, 1606, with the objective of colonizing the eastern coast of America. The coast was named Virginia after Elizabeth I. The coast was named Virginia after Elizabeth I. What did Virginia get its name from? From Elizabeth I. And it stretched from present-day Maine to the Carolinas. The company's shareholders and Londoners. And it was distinguished from the Plymouth Company. It's another company. Now, do y'all think this is just hyperbole? Do y'all think that at the establishment of these companies and when they started making money, do y'all think the 1776, 1775 Revolutionary War stopped these people from being a company? No, they still were companies. Did y'all know that these companies were furnishing supplies to the Confederate States of America during the Civil War? I'm going to show you proof. Don't worry about it. London always played both sides. They played both sides. Even during the Revolutionary War, you had people in London playing both sides. Because it was their shit anyway. They had already got the charter to the land already. Hey, the Revolutionary War just popped off. Is my charter still good for Maryland? Oh, it is? Okay, cool. Well, I don't care what they do then. Shit. As long as my charter's still good. Let me know when they finish fighting so we can start building and make some money. The Revolutionary War started. The British are coming. Is my charter still good for Pennsylvania? My charter still, I still got my charter? Yeah, okay, so I still get paid, right? Okay, cool. Go ahead and fight. The Civil War started? Is my charter still good for, okay, cool. They shot Dr. King in the head. Is my charter still good for, okay, charter's still good, okay. They shot who else? I don't even know who that is. My charter's still good though? Okay, cool, we good then. Because of those charters, I'm telling that's the truth. Like, oh shit, man. Well, that's so sad. We're still getting paid, right? Yeah, because we have the charter. You guys are the shareholders. You guys are the trustees for the corporation. If you don't believe me, next time you go to a courthouse or a courtroom, look at that seal up there. It's gonna say Georgia established 1770. That's the date. Look on your LLC at home if you got LLCs or S corp, whatever you got. You're gonna have what's called an article of incorporation. That's all Georgia is. That's all Virginia is. They had to have what's called an article of incorporation. They had to have an independent governing body to get a charter. And once they're chartered, they had a board of trustees to dictate the day-to-day activities. And they set up municipalities called cities, counties, and those cities and counties are governed by mayors and then by the governor. And the governor reports. Okay? This is real simple, how they did it. Now, all this other information they're giving you in this history, this is just, it's smoke and mirrors. It's just smoke and mirrors. Hold on, family. Hush that dog up. Hush. Sorry, I got dogs in here barking out. So, listen to this right here. The Plymouth Company, which was chartered at the same time and composed largely in gentlemen from Plymouth, England. Over there, the biggest trade breakthrough resulting for adventurers to the colonies, John Raffle introduced several sweeter strands of tobacco from the Caribbean, not from Virginia, from the Caribbean. These yields are more appealing product than harsh tasting tobacco native to Virginia. Cultivating Raffle's new tobacco strand produced a strong commodity crop for export for the London Company and other early English colonies, helped to balance the national trade deficit with Spain. They had a national trade deficit in 1624. I thought our national trade deficit now is crazy. No, they've been had it. They've been doing this is business. We so caught up in the emotional politics of things. This is the business. This is really happening right now. These are companies. These companies been trading. These LLCs been doing. It's not personal. It's just business. That's why they had to reduce your status as that of chattel property or chattel property. And then Lincoln came behind that and reduced the status to spoils of war. I'll show you in a second. Lincoln changed the status of the so-called Southern Negroes to it's like spoils of war, but it's called contrabands of war. That's the word, contraband. Lincoln reduced the status to contrabands of war. This is 1860s. Lincoln can't just free Negroes from the South because 1850 Fugitive Slave Act was a law. Lincoln can't break the law. What he had to do was he had to go under the law and create a new status that superseded that status as the executive chief and commander in chief. Lincoln didn't make that call as president. He made that call as commander in chief, and he invoked what's called martial law. And under martial law, he could do it. He declared martial law. That's why you get General Order Number 15, General Order Number 3. General Order Number 15 was the distribution of land called the 40-acre situation from the Freedmen's Bureau, but it was called General Order Number 15 because it was under martial law. At that point in time, when the Union took over the Confederate States at that time, they were under what's called the UCMJ, Uniform Commercial Military Code. I'm sorry, the Uniform Commode Military Justice. Articles of Confederation. I'm sorry, articles of UCMJ. Pardon me. War power. War power. This is war power and corporate takeover. I'm almost done. The company failed in 1624 following the great wide destruction of the Great Massacre of 1622 by indigenous people in the colonies, which decimated the English population. Have you guys ever heard of that? The Great Massacre of 1622, when we was killing them. The Indian massacre. This is 1622. I'm gonna show you a war before then that we killed them. They're like roaches. They kept coming back. The indigenous population massacred these jokers. Now I lived in Virginia for 20 years. Brother Crom lived in Virginia for a while too. I lived there for 20 years. The history I was reading, these pilgrims could not come past Virginia Beach for years. And if you ever been to Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach to Norfolk ain't about an 8-minute drive, probably about an hour or two walk. They couldn't even come past. They couldn't come past Atlantic and 16th. They couldn't even come into Virginia Beach, let alone Portsmouth and Norfolk. They weren't allowed in there. And two Indian groups, Powhatan and the Pamunkey. And out in Suffolk County, you had some of the Natchez Indians out there in Suffolk County. That's where the good brother Nat Turner, last Indian chief for the Natchez. That's another time. I'll show you that later. The Indian Massacre of 1622 took place in English colonies of Virginia, April 1st, 1622. English explorer John Smith, though he was not an eyewitness, wrote in his History of Virginia that the warriors of the Powhatan came unarmed into our houses with deer, so on and so forth. They killed him. They killed him. This is honors to Nat Turner. They unalived. I'm sorry. This is honors to Nat Turner later. There's several revolts. Do you know why the Native Americans were unaliving them at such alarming rates? Now, keep in mind, these companies are trying to come set up shop, factories on the shores. They're just coming in gentrifying. Ain't asked no permission. Ain't asked to talk to who in charge. No. We have the here's what they did. We have the Intercaterra Convena. We have the Doctrine of Discovery. our Lord so we can come over here. Who is y'all Lord? Oh, Jesus. Is Jesus here? No, he's not here, but the Pope is going to stand in his place, though. The Pope is the vicar. Can you imagine trying to explain this to these natives? And they're like, what is a Pope? Oh, he's like a religious leader. He makes sure, like, man, look, man, just get off the land. Native Americans like, we ain't going nowhere. I'm talking about the Native Americans on the East Coast. I'm not talking about the TP Rome nomads. Those are nomads. They just got here yesterday. They just got here. They just got here. The Illinois tribe and Dakota, Lakota, who else out there? The Plain Indians, the ones who slept in the pueblos and those tents. You call them teepees. They're just tents. The ones who slept in those tents, they just got here. So in 15, 16, they were not fighting nobody yet. They just got here. Okay? Don't confuse them out west fighting with these people on the East Coast. This is an East Coast war. Great Massacre of 1662 by indigenous people in the colonies, which decimated decimates mean wipe them out. I think it does, right, brother? I'm not, a wordsmith, but I do think that decimate mean they got rid of them. They unalived all of the Europeans. On May 24th, James dissolved the company and made it a royal colony from England, with proprietary male colonists retaining some representation through the lower houses of the House of Burgess. Let's go to the House of Burgess. The House of Burgess was an assembly of elected representatives from Virginia that met in 1634 to 1776. The democratically elected legislative body was the first of its kind in English North America. It was the first of its kind. They never seen a republic or a democracy before. They don't know what that is. They don't know about representatives. They don't know about senators. Listen, they were under a feudal system. What's called a monarchy. They were under a monarchy. Now they come over here, these Native Americans got it going on. The Indians, they got representation from each chapter, each tribe. They got senators side up, they got chieftains side up, they got it organized. There's too many tribes for everybody to come talk at one time. Give me 2 representatives from each tribe and let them talk for everybody. And when these Europeans start seeing, like, well, wait a minute, well, how they, and they're learning. That's why this picture right here of Patrick Henry, and there's another picture with Benjamin Franklin trying to explain to these Europeans how they have to set it up. This is just the House of Burgess. Later, we're going to have what's called the Virginia Assembly. This is the government system that's really doing the work over here on our people. It ain't about no, we black slaves and Indian. No, man, listen. That's later. Let's learn the politics of how they did it first. Noble Drew Ali said, I'm gonna leave the Europeans in power long enough for you to learn it. We have to learn what they did, not get mad and pout about it. Let's learn what they did. From 1619 to 1643, elected burgess met in a uncaramel session with governor and royal appointed governor's council. After 1643, the burgess met separately as lower houses in the General Assembly of Virginia. Each county sent 2 burgesses to the House. Here they go. Representative sent 2 burgesses to the House. Towns could petition to send a single representative, as Jamestown, Williamsburg, and Norfolk. The College of William and Mary had also had representation in the House. Most burgesses were also members of a gentry class. What is a gentry class? Let's find out. A gentry was a small class of men who dominated the economic, social, and political life of Virginia through much of the mid-late 18th century. Of landed but not noble lineage, the gentry established themselves in Virginia as tobacco planters, relying heavily on labor of the first indentured servant. Why would they save the first indentured servants? They relied heavily on the labor first of indentured servants, then enslaved Africans. Wait a minute. So there's two groups of people. I told y'all those indentured servants were white slaves. We're gonna talk more about that tomorrow. See, these Virginia colonies relied heavily on them.
Come on.
But a lot of them kept running away. They had 7-year contracts. These were just contracts. So they had to go into contract with colored folks later. And if our people had an HR department or was able to read and write those contracts, they wouldn't have got involved with them. It's a different story. Enslaved Africans, as the richest men in Virginia, they dominated colonial government, sitting on the governor's council and in the House of Burgesses and running Anglican vestry. They constructed large homes, especially in the Tidewater, that's Virginia. They dominated the landscape and symbolized their great power. Another symbol of gentry's prestige was the enduration amount of time planters spent on leisure activities such as gambling and dancing. Over time, however, the gentry's power began to decline. Already overwhelmed by debt, they had trouble negotiating changes that came with diversifying economic religious distinction. And the social shift accompanied the American Revolution in 75 to 83 and emphasized the rights on the common man. Many of the non-gentry drafted into the Continental Army represented the planters' ability to avoid fighting. Nevertheless, the gentries weathered the storm and remained in power well into the 19th century. They were called gentries, aka aristocrats. We have black aristocrats too. They were the ones who pushed their kids off into the boule. That's what black boule is. They're aristocrats. They're black gentries.
Come on.
Wealthy landowners, millionaires, so on and so forth. I ain't got time to show you them, but there were a lot of black European gentries too. Okay? Don't just think these are all just white people because I'm saying Europeans. I'm saying Europeans. When I want to distinctly say white, I'll say white. But right now I'm talking about Europeans, both colored and white.
Come on.
Like Queen Charlotte.
Teach.
Most burghers were also members of the gentry class. In 1774, when the House of Burgesses began to support resistance to the crown, Virginia's royal governor, John Murray, Earl of Denmore, dissolved it. The Virginia Constitution of 76 created a new General Assembly. I just told y'all that. The new General Assembly that replaced the Governor's Council with the elected Senate and the House of Burgesses with the elected House of Delegates. The House of Burgesses is notable, however, for being training ground for many American foundation fathers, including George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Richard Henry Lee, and Patrick Henry. It's called the House of Burgesses. Burgesses were a bunch of landowners. This is 1643 to 1776. Watch this. Oh shit, I just missed it. Look at the time frame. Let's study time. Head rights refers to a legal grant of land given to settlers during the period of the European colonization in America. A head's right included both grants of land and to the owner, the head, and the claim of land. Let's look at head rights. This is before the other thing I'm going to show you in a second. A head right refers to a legal grant of land given to settlers during the land period of European colonization. How did this come take our shit? I just told you, the Indicaterra Convention, they took it by force. I showed y'all 4 forms of colonization. Y'all thought them just coming over here and putting up log cabins and breaking bread with us at Thanksgiving? No, there was different forms of colonization. This is what makes it the penal colony. Brother, do you mind reading it right quick?
A head right. A head right refers to a legal grant of land given to settlers during the period of European colonization in the Americas. A head right includes both the grant of land and the owner, the head, that claims the land. The person who has a right to the land is the one who paid to transport people to to a colony.
Uh-oh. Wait a minute. The person who had the rights to the land is the person who paid for the slave ship. Go ahead.
Head rights are most notable for their role in the expansion of the 13 colonies. The Virginia Company gave head rights to settlers, and the Plymouth Company followed suit. The head right system was used in several colonies, including Maryland, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina.
Mm.
Most head rights were for 1 to 1,000 acres of land and were granted to those who were willing to cross the Atlantic and help populate the colonies. Head rights were granted to anyone who would pay for the transportation cost of an indentured laborer.
Sounds like you got to pay for the gas money to get your slave over here. What it sounds like to me, don't sound like you're just capturing people and bringing them over here. You have to pay for them to get here. Continue.
These land grants consisted of 50 acres for someone newly moving to the area and 100 acres for people previously living in the area. By ensuring the landowning masters had legal ownership of all the land acquired, the indentured laborers, after their indentured period had passed, had little opportunity to procure their own land. This kept a large portion of the citizens of the 13 colonies poor and led to tension between the laborers and the landowners.
I'm going to read that one more time for y'all, the last part. This kept a large portion of the citizens, serfs of the 13 penal colonies poor and led to tension between slaves and slaveholders.
Where have I heard that before?
Oh, man. Oh, man. Let's see.
That sounds like our story.
This right here. Bacon's Rebellion was the most challenged royal authority before the American Revolution. History can connect the event to deadline and indentured servitude. This is what happened. This is what happened. It was not about black and white because they fought together. 1676. Okay. After this, we're going to go ahead and go to 17. We haven't even got to 1700s yet. And I haven't even mentioned the Indian War yet, because y'all think these Europeans are having a hard time settling themselves and forming their forms of government. All while this is happening, there are several hundred Indian wars. Several thousands of Native Americans were transported out of the Americas over to Europe and Africa in the 1600s. That was called the first transatlantic slave trade. The second one, they get you hyped about the African slave trade, that was a little bit later down the line. 1808, they outlawed that. 1826 to 1835, they began what's called the domestic slave trade, retrading your ass again in America. Then they give you a movie like Roots, 12 Years a Slave. What's another one? Django. Give me another one. Any other slave movie? Like I told Crumb, any slave movie that you can think of right now, all happened in the 1800s. Besides Amistad, that was 1600s. That's the only slave movie that's out right now that did not have 1800. There's no other slave. There are no records of nobody picking cotton in 16 nothing. There are no records of nobody getting beat and lynched in 17 nothing for picking cotton. There were no plantations at that time of worth mentioning that Negroes were out in the fields doing anything. Between the wars, there's fighting. You haven't even got the Indian Removal Act yet. You had to get through the Indian Removal Act by Jackson to push you off the land first. The land becomes abandoned and they resettle the land under charters and trusts. Then they put you back on the land with what's called the 40 acres. And then Andrew Johnson vetoes that and get the land back to white plantation owners under head rights.
T. Beach.
Man, come on, y'all. 1676, what started as a dispute between settlers, Indians, on the Virginia-Maryland border. We're not going to leave Virginia and Maryland for a second. All right. I haven't went to Carolina yet. Notice I'm going to go to Carolina next. I'm going to go in order how they settled the colonies. We're still in Maryland and Virginia trying to figure it out. Now, you won't hear Pennsylvania too much because Mr. Penn of the Quakers, they didn't play that. They already, the Quakers, the only people who had issues were the Calvinists. The Calvinists weren't good with the Puritans, or they weren't good with the Catholics. They were just this outcasts of religious groups. All right. One day, Crom, I'm gonna do all Great Awakenings because I think that'll help also in this shit. But anyway, what started a dispute between the settlers and Indians on the Virginia-Maryland border in the fall of 1675 quickly erupted into a full-scale rebellion. Nathaniel Bacon against Governor Sir Williams Berkeley, Virginia, Hampton Roads, Berkeley, same Berkeley, a wealthy planter in his government the following year. The late 1600s, elite planters, those same ones I just showed you, those landowners, the elite barons I just showed you, them. The elite planters in Virginia relied on indentured servant labor. We just read that somewhere else, did we not?
Come on.
After their service ended, these individuals moved farther inland into the Tidewater region. I told you the Indians didn't want them in Norfolk. They didn't want them in Portsmouth or Chesapeake. They didn't want them out there. Hey, stay y'all ass in Virginia Beach somewhere. No, come out here with that. All right. Fearful of increasing Indian raids, the frustration by years of low tobacco prices and high taxes, the settlers gathered behind Nathan Bacon. Bacon, Governor Berkeley Cousins by marriage, was well connected with gentlemen recently arriving in the colonies. Bacon defied Berkeley's attempts at brokering peace between the settlers and native tribes. He and his followers sought to acquire more land by driving native people out of Virginia completely. Violence escalated quickly. Faced with continuing loss of their land, the Dogie tribe attacked the European settlement. The settlers retaliated, yet attacked the peaceful Shinnecock tribe by mistake, which led to further conflict. The raid, often led by Bacon himself, led to the killing of many native people. According to historical record, the Pamunkey tribe led their queen, Caucasaur. Am I saying her name right? Caucasay.
Don't give me the line.
Y'all see it. C-O-C-A Coco. Let's say Queen Coco for the record. The Pamunkey tribe led their queen Coco, fled to the marshland where they would be harder to rebel for rebels to track. Sorry. So if they had a queendom, they had a kingdom, they had a chieftain, they had an empire over here. And we ain't even talking about the other black kings. He's a chief. It's a king. It's a chieftain. It's the form of government that Europeans called it. It's called a chieftain. That's why he's a chief. He's also a king of that tribe. Like she's a queen of that tribe. She belongs to a chieftain territory. You don't believe me? We can look up Chief, what's his name? Tuscaloosa. Y'all know who that is? Alabama? Who's from Alabama in the chat? Alabama, check in. Y'all know who Chief Tuscaloosa is? Man, tell you something. There's a whole empire over here. But Bacon's rebellion is when the poor whites and the blacks they got together. Like, look, this European government is bullshitting us. So this one, everybody got together and they pitted together. Shortly after this, the British government quickly realized they had to make even poor whites feel better than blacks. 1676, 1677. Why was it important? Bacon Rebellion in Virginia was the first popular uprising in the American colonies. It was long viewed as an early revolt against English tyranny. which culminated the War of Independence for 100 years later. It was the prequel for the Revolutionary War later. What was the main result? The biggest effect of the Bacon Rebellion was labor. Slavery. No, it's labor. Slavery. No, it's labor. Labor in Virginia and neighboring colonies turned away from using indentured servants and began investing in slavery instead. Wait a minute. Why did y'all go to slavery? Why not just stick with the indentured servants who was coming from England? They ran away. What they run to? What they run to? How many colonies did we have in 1677? Let me show y'all something, blow y'all mind real quick. How many colonies were let's just do, what was that? 1670 and 1676. All 13. I'm sorry, that's in 17. Sorry. There we go. These categories has following 7 categories, subcategories total. 1692 is government 13 colonies, 1692 Providence, Massachusetts Bay, so on and so forth. That's not what I'm looking for. To get the right answer, to answer the right questions, I guess. Let's go to a map real quick. Let's look up a map. There we go. That's all we had right here. Not everybody. Hold on. It's gonna come up. Give it a second. Oh, that's a whole PowerPoint. I don't know what the fuck this is. Oh, here we go. There we go.
They said in 1692 there were 13 colonies.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
horse, that's horse shit, because you don't get Georgia until like 1732. So
yeah.
But let's look at the darker territory. It says English settlements in 1660 were only up here. Oh, can you see it?
No, they blurred it out.
Okay.
They hating.
All right. Well, let's get the fuck out of here, man. Let's get out of here, man. Dang. They hating on the game. There we go. So 1670s, 1660s, you just get Maryland, parts of Virginia, Jamestown mostly in that area. Not quite Pennsylvania, but that's what they're giving us. This is the 1670s, y'all. So anyway, we got the Bacon's Rebellion. Let's move on. Before we get to Indian Removal Act, we got to go to the Indian Wars. I'm gonna highlight this real quick. I'm spend about 2 minutes on this, and I'm gonna fly out of here. 1622, the Indian Massacre. That's back up there. Let's see if we can get to some of these wars real quick. There's a lot of them, so I'm not gonna go through all of them. The American Indian Wars, also known as the American Frontier Wars. Well, this is not the only one. This is they're starting the Indian Wars during the Western expansion. They're going to mention other wars, though. These conflicts occurred during the time of the earliest colonial. See right here? These conflicts, they're not going to really get into which ones. I'm going to show you which ones, though. These conflicts occurred from the time of the earliest colonial settlements in 17th century until the 19th century. Then tell us which ones y'all got into in 1600s then. They got 17th century. No, name which ones y'all got into and got your ass kicked. We was fighting the whole time.
Come on.
That picture is out west. That's after the 1849 gold rush, y'all. Cowboys in India, that was later. That was way later. As American settlers spread expansion westward across the United States after 1780, armed conflicts increased size during the intensity between the settlers of various Indian tribes. The climax came at the War of 1812. Remember that. Write that down. The War of 1812, because you're going to get a young colonel by the name of Andrew Jackson is going to get his stripes based on that. As you can see in true form, right, the next paragraph, you see the Indian Removal Act of 1830. You're going to start seeing a lot of stuff happen between 1808 always 1866 dealing with so-called Negroes, blacks, and Indians. A lot's going to happen. A lot's going to happen. We don't have time to get into all of it, but just understand a lot of American frontier, a lot of territory gets taken away or declared what's called abandoned land. And that land left languished by the deserters who got pushed off during the first massive, during the Trail of Tears. Those people, remember those people who just left, got pushed off? They left a lot of land and territory just open. And squatters, carpetbaggers came in and claimed it. The Freedmen's Bureau, however, we'll talk about them real quick in a second. But the American Indian Wars, write that down. Let's visit old boy real quick before we move out of the 1600s. Let's visit what's his name? King Philip's Wars. Now, if you think this is a European war, you are completely incorrect. King Philip was a name of one of the Wampanoag Indian chief. Who are the Wampanoags? M.O.I? I'm gonna show you in a second. Good question. King Philip, sometimes called the First Indian War. Metacom's War. Metacom's War, Pamaka, whatever that says, rebellion. Another rebellion. Metacom's rebellion was an armed conflict in 1675, 1676 between a group of indigenous people. I want y'all to pay attention. I don't care if it's WikiLeaks, Wikipedia, Britannica, whatever the source is. Anytime we're talking about people in America before 18 anything, they're always going to say indigenous people. Anything after 18 anything, you're going to start saying Native American and the word Indian. Not so much Indian. Indian was around the 1970s, but you're going to start saying Native American real hard. Notice all in the 1600s, you keep saying indigenous people. And not just indigenous people of color. The Wampanoag. Ooh, who are they? What's up, sis? Hey, auntie.
Come on. That's right.
Hey, auntie. They federally recognized 2007. Nigga ain't black, lumber, Indian, copper tone, brown skin. The Wampanoag are Native American people. See how they rendition. They're Native American people now. Native American people of the northeastern woodlands, currently based in southern East Massachusetts and formerly parts of eastern Rhode Island. Their historical territory included the islands of Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. Nantucket. It's a famous seafaring town right there, family. A lot of stevedores, black stevedores came out of that town. Look at what a stevedore is, or a black merchant marines were in that area. A lot of black folks who were bound to those ships you call slave ships. They were actually just working, and they couldn't leave that ship. So, of course, you saw them on the ship, working all the time. It's called stevedores. Anyway, today, the two Wampanoag tribes federally recognized the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe of Gayhead, Wampanoag language, also known as Massachusetts, and southern New England Algonquian. Prior to English contact in the 17th century, the Wampanoag numbers was 40,000 people living across 67 villages, composing the Wampanoag Nation. These villages covered the territory along the eastern, what's it today called Weymouth, like Portsmouth, I think. Weymouth, all of now it's called Cape Cod and the islands of Nantucket, now called Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard in the southeast, and for Poconoke, Bristol's, Warren, Rhode Island. The Wampanoag live on this land for 12,000 years. At least that's what they can come up with.
Dang, Gina.
Well, so that's 12,000 years prior to 16 anything. Prior. So count backwards from 1600s. You're going to end up in BC. This is going to happen to you. If you count backwards 12,000 years to trace their lineage, how long they've been here, you'll end up in BC time frame. 100 years is a century. 1,000 years is a millennium. 12 millenniums ago, over 5,000 centuries ago. The Wampanoag people, not him. He's just shaking her hand. It's her who's getting. You see how she's grabbing the check and he's giving it away. She's the recipient. She's the Wampanoag. 1615, 1619. These European ships dramatically reduced the population of the Wampanoag and neighboring tribes. Indigenous death from epidemic. What's that word? Are you?
Yeah, epidemic.
So diseases. More than 50 years later, Wampanoag Chief Segment Metacom and his allies waged war on King's Philip War of 1675 to 1676 against the colonies. This is a whole nother war. The war resulted in 40% of the surviving Wampanoags. The English sold many Wampanoags into slavery. That's how we came from Africa. They sold them into slavery to Bermuda in the West Indies on plantations and farms, one and the same, run by colonies from New England. I didn't know they took Negroes, so-called Indians from America, and shipped them somewhere else. I thought they brought them here. No. This is 1615. You don't get the first contact from European to 1619. When were the first? Watch this. Write these dates down, family. This is how you disarm the whole conversation with this slavery shit. I promise you. Write down. Put it in the chat. I'm sorry. Put it in the chat. Write down 1615 to 1619. Let me show you something. Watch this. When did the first African slaves arrive in America? The 1500s. Watch this. The arrival of the first captives to Jamestown was in 1619. We was already fighting by then. Chief Metacom, look. King Philip, they're already fighting. When the first Africans even got here, we already beating the Europeans up already. The Africans like, what the hell? Why are we here? Why are we over here? What we do to get over here to this shit, right? We ain't nothing to do with this. Y'all got to fight them people over there. All right, let's continue. When did slavery start in the Americas from Africa? Many consider a significant starting point in slavery in America to be 1619, when the privateer, the White Lion, brought 20 enslaved Africans ashore to the British colony of Jamestown, Virginia. The crew had seized Africans from the Portuguese slave ship, Sahel John, whatever that is. This is your movie Amistad. This is Amistad. The White Lion was a privateer ship that was hijacked. And they brought 20 enslaved Africans to the shores of North America. That's why I keep telling y'all to ask them when and where. When and where did Africans come to North America? I don't care about Brazil and the island. I don't care about that. I'm asking y'all to ask the question, when did Africans come to North America? 1619. What was Chief Metacom them doing in 1619? Fighting, shooting, killing Europeans, colonists. You think these 20 Africans would fight anybody? No. What they fighting for? Fighting with? What they doing? It was watching probably, but they didn't get involved. You ain't from Africa. You ain't from Africa. You ain't from Africa. They didn't even get here yet. They're not even here yet, and they're already fighting.
Amen.
All right, so we got King Philip's War. His name is Chief Metacom, people. Write down Chief Metacom. They say it was one of the bloodiest fights. There's several other fights. The War of 1812 was also a bloody fight between Native Americans and Europeans also. There's several wars. We could just look up the 100-year Indian War, and there's several wars dating back before 1675 to 76. They're giving it 1 year. Their particular conflict was 1 year. King Philip's War, however, was all the way through, starting at 1670, 1665. Okay? And why were they fighting the Europeans? Because the Europeans tried to come all the way inland. And hey, look, y'all can hang out on the beach. And they love the beach to this day. Don't come past that beach, though. Chief Metacon, you know they're in Norfolk. They're in Norfolk. I told them, oh, let's go fight. And they had to push them back to Virginia Beach. And this is what happened. I'm saying it jokingly, but this is what happened, though. So this is right. I hope you got the right now King Philip's War or Chief Metacon. These were the Pamunkey and the Wampanoag Indians. This is 1675. Do you know who else was a Wampanoag Indian in 1775? Let me show you. Crispus Attucks, Wampanoag Indian in stevedore, meaning he worked in the piers on the ship, y'all. He worked on the ship. Boop, he was a Wampanoag. Did you know that? He was the first brother shot down in the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
Wampanoag still fighting.
Come on.
Still fighting a good fight. Now we're in the 1700s. Let me show you something real quick, real slick that you guys should know that you may not know about the good brother Crispus Attucks. This is the Boston Massacre. 2 years later, United States founding father Samuel Adams, cousin of John Adams, named the event Boston Massacre to help ensure it will never be forgotten. Boston artist Henry Pelham, half-brother, the celebrated portrait painter of John Singleton Copeland, created an image of the event. Paul Revere made a copy from which its prints were made and distributed. Some copies and prints show darker skinned man, chest wound, presumably representing Crispus Attucks. Other copies, prints show no different than skin tone of the victim. The 5 men that were killed were buried heroes at Gannergy burial grounds, which contains the graves of Samuel Adams, John Hancock, and other notable figures. Customs and periods of discourage the burial of black people and white people together, with black burial regulations to the rear of the cemetery. Such practices was not completely unknown. However, Prince Hall, for example, was interior at Copp's Hill burial ground in the north end of Boston 39. These caskets over here is a Masonic casket. This is not Prince Hall casket. This is Crispus Attucks. I did a really dope point on TikTok showing you how Crispus Attucks is really Prince Hall. That's later. We'll get to it later. Don't you worry about it. Don't you even worry about it. I got you another time. 1776, we have another Wampanoag brother, Crispus Attucks, who's also shot, Wampanoag Indian. And there's several other Wampanoag Indians too. The main thing to take away right now is Crispus Attucks. I'm sorry, King Philip's War, Indian War. Let's go to 1700s, 1800s. We're gonna wrap it up in about 15 minutes, family. 1732. Let's go here. No, shit, we got to back up. My bad. We're going to leave Virginia for a second. Let's go to Carolina real quick. It's called the Carolina Charter of 1663. Let's find out what it is. Ooh, that's tiny. I'll read it for you. The purpose. The Carolina Charter of 63 was a gift from the land, a gift of land from the England's King Charles II to 8 friends who had helped him reign the throne. The Lords Proprietors. Write down Lords Proprietors. The first thing I covered when you open up the PowerPoint, the discussion today, was Lord Proprietors. The Lord Proprietors of Carolinas were given land in the America that stretched from ocean to ocean. Damn! From shore to shining shore. 8 Europeans received land. And that land is in what's called perpetuity, because that land is what you call allodial. And it kept getting passed down even to this day to 2024. That land is in the family's name. And that land got Walmarts on it. goddamn IKEAs and all kind of housing apartments. These are the real landlords, the lords of London. These are the real landlords. Anybody that has a house and you be like, oh, I got to pay my house off. I paid my house off today. Miss property tax. And watch what happened to that house. That house was paid off when they paid Home Depot for the lumber. The house been paid for. It's the land you got to pay for. America's for sale, people. Y'all better buy y'all some. Anyway, this is the Carolina Charter of 1663. It was chartered territory or land given to 8 jokers. It was the Royal Charter. How do I slide my screen back over? Oh, wow. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
I'm on a Mac computer, family. You got to forgive me. What did the Royal Charter do in 63? The Royal Charter in 63 was a document granted by King Charles II of England, of the colony of Rhode Island, Providence Plantation. It allowed settlers in Rhode Island to govern their own colony and guarantee their individual freedom of religion. What happened in South Carolina in 63? South Carolina, part of the original province of Carolina, was founded in 1663 when King Charles II gave the land to 8 noblemen, just read that already. At the time, the province included North Carolina and South Carolina. North and South Carolina became separate royal colonies in 1729. All you Geechee Gullah people out here, I need you to understand what was happening in Carolina in 1663. I understand. Geechee Gullah, Geechee Rice. I get it. But this is the backside of the story of how it even became a Carolina in the first place. We know it wasn't called Carolina at first. We understand that. King Charles granted a charter for land in America to Lord proprietors. That's the part you want to remember. Lord proprietors in Carolina. So now we're going to leave Virginia, Maryland area. We're going to travel down the coast. If you take what's that, bro? 95, Suffolk 58 to 95.
Come on.
This is that whole little drive from Virginia down to Georgia right now. We're going to go through Carolina, 1663. Virginia was 1619. Okay. Now we're in 1663. Let's go a little further south. Let's go ahead and go to Georgia. We don't cover both of the Carolinas already. We're not quite ready to go into Kentucky and Tennessee yet. But I got to give you guys the backdrop so you guys understand this whole slave narrative and you won't be so scared of it. What's that? 1663. Let's go here real quick so you guys understand what we're talking about before we go to Georgia. It's called the Articles of Confederation, 1777. This is a really important document. Write this down. Okay. The Articles of Confederation were adopted by the Continental Congress November 15, 1775. This document served as the United States' first constitution. How many constitutions do we have? Somebody. Anybody. How many constitutions do we have? How many constitutions do we have? How many constitutions do we have? Three. We have 3 constitutions. Actually, we have 3 constitutions. And see, this is my point in case, fam. This is my point in case tonight. Everybody want to be all debative and talk about things and want to debate about this. They don't even know how many constitutions we got. You got Moors want to point out sovereignty and this law and this statute, black law dictionary. How many constitutions we got? Which constitution do we talk about? The Constitution never applied to y'all anyway. Us. These constitutions wasn't written. These constitutions was written as a formidable contract or the Articles of Confederation, to put the Union together, to formulate the Union. And the Union divided from the Confederacy. Remember that? Remember how the Union divided from the Confederacy? This is called the Articles of Union. No, the Articles of Confederation for the Confederacy. Let's dig into it real quick. The Articles of Confederation were adopted by the Continental Congress. Who was the general of the Continental Congress? Who was the general of the Continental Congress? Who was the general of the Continental Congress? Thank you. George Washington was the general of the Continental Congress. He was not the president yet. He was a general. A lot of these presidents you're going to see up until like your seventh president, which is Andrew Jackson, these were generals. These were war powers. These were commander-in-chiefs. They were not political Donald Trump suit-wearing people. These were war people, forcibly taking land and killing Indians. That's who they were. So we got Washington. Washington served, this document served as the United States' first constitution. It was forced on March 1st, 1781 until 1789 when the present-day constitution went into effect. Articles of Confederation. You need to know that. Now, in order to get the Articles of Confederation, hold on, watch this. It's important too, sorry. Here we go. These are the 7 Articles of Confederation: legislative, executive, judicial, relationship between state, amending constitution, supreme law, and ratification. Those are the subsection articles. But the first 3 are the first forms of any government we have in America, okay? Legislative, executive, judicial. Remember those 3, okay? Now that's called the Articles of Confederation, sorry. That came by way of this right here. It's called the Second Continental Congress. You have the Continental Army. This is the Second Continental Congress and Declaration of Independence. This is prior to them splitting off. The Second Continental Congress met inside Independence Hall in 1775. Just a month after the shot had been fired, Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts, Congress was preparing for war. So you have the Second Continental Congress. You have the Articles of Confederation. Write this stuff down, people. This is just basic U.S. history. But we got so caught up into the conscious community, we forgot basic U.S. history. I'm at the 2-hour mark. I got a couple more minutes. Basic U.S. history. Could you pull that document back up real quick? The document I had up, that paper real quick, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Oh, what did I just do it?
I want to make sure I'm on. I can start with a good wrap up point. So far, family, we've talked about quite a bit. We talked about the formation of a lot of these entities, the proprietary system, which gives us the actual penal system, the fact that all the colonies are still under the crown, still a thing. Actually, scroll a little bit more. I went a little bit past that a little bit. Well, down, other way, sorry. Yeah, right there. The Lord Proprietor were 8 Englishmen who King Charles II, we just read about that, by the Carolina Charter of 1663 and 65 was a joint ownership tract of land called the New World, called the Carolina. All these men either had remained loyal to the crown or blah, blah, blah. General James Edward Oglethorpe, the first proprietary and founder of the colony, originally recruited the Rangers bolster of the weak militia of 1734. The colony's corporate charter was granted to General James Oglethorpe. I just told you about General George Washington, Commander-in-Chief, what's his name? Andrew Jackson. These are all war commanders, by the way. On April 21st, 1732, by George II. Georgia is named after George. From the colony, from the colony's name. The charter was finalized by King's Privy Council July 9th, 1732. Oglethorpe envisioned a colony which would serve as a haven for English subjects who had been imprisoned for debt. The worthy should be white. The white poor, General Oglethorpe imposed a very strict law that many colonists disagreed with, such as the banning of alcohol. He disagreed with slavery. Ooh, Georgia, imagine no slavery in Georgia. That is crazy. And thought a system of small holding more appropriate than large plantation, common in colonies just to the north. However, land grants were not as large as most colonists would have preferred. Keep going. Another reason for the founding of the colony was a buffer state in a garrison province, which would defend southern British colonies from Spanish Florida. Remember, I told you at the beginning of the conversation, Spain owned Florida. Spain owned Florida. Spain owned parts of Alabama. They owned Texas. Spain had all that on lock. So the fact that he founded Georgia, it served as a buffer between Spanish invasion into British colonies. Oglethorpe imagined a province populated of sturdy farmers. Wait. Let me see if I got some sturdy farmers that he was talking about in my pictures here. He wanted what happened? There you go. He wanted sturdy farmers. I wonder who he was talking about. Oglethorpe imagined province population of sturdy farmers who could guard the border. Because of this, the colony's charter prohibited slavery. The ban on slavery was lifted in 1751, and the colony became a royal colony by 1752. Ta-da-da-da-da! No slavery in Georgia until 1751. So once again, these African slaves went where and did what when they came here? Is my mic on? Is my mic on? African slaves came where, when? To do what? When? 16 what? Where? Pick cotton where? What year? This is how you defeat. This is how you eliminate that idea. And this whole idea is propagated by an individual by the name of Melvin Herkovitz, student of Franz Boas. And they taught y'all this crap. It was taught. It was learned. Years of indoctrination. Years of it. Oh, we're going to deal with this later too. Not tonight, though. Indoctrination, what they call assimilation. Y'all came from Africa. Who told y'all that? Who told you black? Sound like your boy Malcolm X. Anyway, finish up. The colony had been sluggish beginning. James Oglethorpe did not allow liquor. Now, liquor was banned through a lot of the colonies due to the fact a lot of the colonists would get the Indians drunk and force them into signing bogus treaties and stuff like that. So it was actually outlawed. If you got caught giving alcohol to a Native American at a time, you would be put in jail and like 50 fucking shingles or something like that. And the colonists who came colonists who came at the trustees' expenses. The whole time I've been trying to read this shit, y'all, I'm stumbling over words like trustee, privateer, investor, this company, charters. Not one time had they said anything mean about black people. They just trying to get their money. And we happen to be the spoils of war. Those who paid their own way could bring 10 indentured servants and would receive 500 acres. This is in Georgia. If you could pay for your Carnival Cruise Line ticket over here, you can bring 10 workers with you. I can bring 10 workers with me? Shit, hell yeah. Y'all want to go? Y'all got to work, though. What we going to work on? I ain't never been there, so I don't know what it looked like. They've never been here yet. Could you imagine? They just heard about some shit over here. Additional land could neither be acquired nor sold. Discontent grew in the colonies because of these restrictions, and Oglethorpe lifted them. With slavery, lucre, and land acquisition, the colonies developed much faster. Slavery had been permitted from 1749. There was some internal opposition to slavery, particularly from Scottish settlers. I wonder why. But because they were the slaves. But by the time the War of Independence, Georgia was much like other Southern colonies. Check. So in fact, which I won't go through this tonight, but I got de facto government data. It shows you that the Second Continental Congress established was a de facto government. And I'll talk a little bit about John Ross and Black Hawk and Chief Tuscaloosa, Chief Tamachichi, Chief Matacom, and Chief Montezuma, who were all people of color, kings over this great dominion prior to the penal colony. But family, listen, I thank you all for listening to me tonight, man. We got a great deal of work done tonight. I know it was long, but this had to be the prequel for you guys to really begin to understand what happened during the time over here in what's called North America. And this was just light work. I went through it real quick, bringing you out of the Inter Terra Convena that sets up things. We didn't even get into the things like the Treaty of Paris, 1763. The Treaty of Paris ended the French and Indian War. There was another war. See, we ain't talk about the French, and the French and Spaniards were fighting the Indians too. We ain't got on them yet. These just the British colonies who were fighting the Indians. Spain and France been fighting the Indians way before, back in the 1500s. The Treaty of Paris, 1763, ended French and Indian War, 7-year war between Great Britain, France, and their prospective allies, which were the Indians. In terms of the treaty, France gave up all the territory in mainland North America, effectively ended the foreign military threat of British colonies there. That's when they began to go out west, get the idea to go out west, when Britain gave up that territory. That territory belonged to France, and part of it belonged to Britain. Those English settlers were not part of the crown anymore. However, because that land they was on was under the crown's consecration, they had to pay their tributes back to England, which we still do today through what's called tax. That was the whole conversation. Hey, y'all can't tax us. Yes, we can. If it wasn't for us, y'all wouldn't even be over here, first of all. And these are the brokers of the Virginia Company and those Philadelphia companies and those Indian Tea companies, those other companies who at this point, they're trading on NASDAQ at this point. Like they don't, you know how many years, man, you know how much equity they got in their company now? How much stake they got in their, how much meat on the bone they got in their company, man, from 276 years ago. And you have not been enslaved for 400 years. Please stop saying that. Y'all sound crazy as hell saying that. How old is America? 246 years since the House of Burgesses in 1690. Listen, that's not, you can't get 400 years of no type of slavery on these shores. That 400-year story is in the Bible. We just adopted that 400-year story because throughout the 60s, they were saying, for 400 years, we've been, Minister Farrakhan, 400 years and 400 years. And you didn't stop not one time to do the math yourself. Where 400 years come from? 12 Years a Slave is the movie I saw. I didn't see 400 Years a Slave. Never been a movie. I've never heard of 400 Years a Slave. You have not been enslaved 400 years, y'all. 246 years at best. 246 years at best. At most, things like this right here, the 1779 census, they didn't even know what to call y'all at first. The first census took place beginning August 2nd, 1790. Although it took months to collect the data from household, census takers were instructed to collect information from August 2nd. For more information, see the 1790 overview. They didn't even know what to call you to 1790. So do not fall for that narrative that Negroes were in chains and shackles for 400 years in North America doing nothing with nobody. Don't you dare. What they do, they just fail to mention who the slaves were in this time period. You just assume that it's you because they show you the 1800 pictures of Negroes in fields. See, Google not going to show you no pictures of you being enslaved in 16 nothing because it didn't happen like that. Okay? Watch this. Watch this. How many Native Americans were sold into slavery in the 1600s? Holy shit. Historian Alan Gallen estimate from 1670 to 1715, English slave traders in the Carolinas sold between 24,000 and 51,000 Native Americans from what now in the southern part of the U.S. Andreas, who's that? U.S. Andreas Residez estimate between 147,000 to 340,000 Native Americans were enslaved in North America, not even counting Mexico.
Wow.
I just showed you Wampanoag and Yamansi and Yamacraw. Let me put them back up again. Here. Right there. 1670. Right there. Y'all ain't been enslaved. No. What y'all talking about? What are y'all talking about? Slaves came over from where? When? Because 147,000 people from here were already being transported out of here. So so the people who were already here, we're going to take them from here and send them over there. But we're going to bring the people over there over here. Wait, why don't we just make them do it over here? Why are we taking, that's wasting gas money. Why are we doing that? They taught y'all that. They taught y'all that because they taught y'all to look out the front porch. They keep telling y'all to look out the front porch. Between 1492, 1890, between 2 and 5.5 million Native Americans were enslaved in America. The additional 12.5 African, 12 million African slaves. Now, the 12 million African slaves were mostly in South America. Mostly South America. 1492, the Indians they're talking about, yes, there are the Tainos and the Arawak and other people too involved in that 5 million slave trade. This is called the Indian slave trade, or indigenous North Native slave trade. Colonial slave enslavement of Native Americans, including those were sold into slavery with long-lasting effects. Native Americans were enslaved in the Americas, an additional 12.5 African slaves. I wonder who you were in this situation, because the Indians they brought out of America, they brought them to Europe and they brought them over to Africa. Did y'all know that? Doesn't it make y'all at least bit curious to wonder why you haven't heard about these people getting sold into slavery? You're not at least bit curious about that? You worried about the Emancipation Proclamation freeing you? You worried about that crap? You don't know about this? In the 1800s, the forced labor of indentured servants, Black children. I know Crown talked to y'all about the orphan trains already. We're not talking about those orphan trains. We're talking about these orphan asylums. In 1625, before the 1631 race riot, these asylums full of Black children were put out there to work. Did y'all know that? All right. I'm going to let it go. Good, Brother Crown. I appreciate you hopping on here, man, and helping navigate the waters, man. It was such a pleasure. Appreciate y'all for your time. You guys have been amazing. Thank you so much. Once again, if you want to drop something in the cash app, something in the collection plate, because I know I did the best I could tonight, family. You want to drop something in the cash app, I appreciate it. Donation, Chef J Ponder on the cash app. Yep. And yes, this is a Shrine of Pens This is a Shrine of Fans. Don't get it twisted. Nope, do not get it twisted. It's long. My thing dirty. It's dirty. Cleaned off. It's long. Don't get it twisted. I'll just, yeah, don't get it twisted. This ain't got no costume. But this is mine, though. Shriner. Don't get it twisted. But thank y'all so much, man. Thank y'all for tapping in. Appreciate y'all, man. As always, love. Hit that cash app. If you have not already, I don't know why you wouldn't do it. Subscribe to Crumb TV. Click that bell. Subscribe to my channel on YouTube as well, the Minister of Information. I'm also over on TikTok. Got the TikTok going crazy. Hit me on TikTok as well, Minister of Information. Tap in with your boy, man. It's been love. Hope y'all took good notes, man. Until next time, we're on tomorrow night, too. Sunday, tomorrow afternoon, 12 o'clock tomorrow. I'm on tomorrow. Subject is white slavery. Which, if you took good notes tonight, tomorrow afternoon, we go live at 12 talking about white slavery. It's going to make it so much easier for you to understand when I mention people like John Castor. Check that out already. When I start bringing up people like this right here, hold on. I said I was going to leave. Hold on. When we start talking about this tomorrow, see how I put in John Castor? And you see how already they're talking about what? The colony of Virginia. What else you see in here? You see the House of Burgesses in here? You see it already? That's why I went over what I went over tonight. So tomorrow at 12 o'clock noon, we talk about the white slaves. Remember a lot of this stuff we talked about with serfs and the estate and stuff like that, okay? But many families, free Black people, continue to form to see you were not all slaves. We were not all under the system of slavery, family. That it's a lie. It's not true. It's not true, okay? So anyway, tomorrow, 12 o'clock noon, tap in with me right here. Again, if you have not, click the watch button, click the live button, click the link, click the bell. Get at me, family. I appreciate y'all, man. As always, peace and light, peace and love. Thanks for tapping in, man. And maybe tomorrow I have more time to go over some questions. Unfortunately, didn't have time tonight, man. But thank y'all. Peace and love.